Hey folks, back again. And today, as promised, I'm finally going to tell you the story of the first love song I ever wrote for Catherine. Way back when I was, just a teenager. And it's also in this book. In fact, it's the opening of this book. But better than that, I managed to find the tape of the song itself. So we finished with that. I am a sentimental guy. I still remember the pillar that Catherine and I hid behind for our very first kiss down at Osgood subway station. Didn't like the way that ticket collector was giving us the funny eye. You know, we were punked out like silly kids. But anyhow, I flew all the way home. My feet didn't touch the ground. And that was a glow I can still remember. And certainly affected me for quite some time after that. So, here's some book. The introduction, Structural Happiness, is called Magic Days. Each of our days contains the same 24 hours, and while we definitely change both biologically and psychologically over time, we are usually a very similar person from one day to the next. But the way some days live in our memories is very strong, while others fade entirely. Like a lot of curious people, I've tried to figure out what makes the rich days rich, and also aspired, often in vain, to recreate conditions that worked especially well before. Thanks to silliness and self-deception, it's easy to go wrong there, because we so often leave important factors out of our consideration. But there are a few really solid things that work quietly and hold up over time. Love is right up there at the top for almost everyone. So is the very similar excitement of building friendship. For many, the thrill of creativity is another powerful daymaker. And too, there are those special times when we've decided to risk something big, made a decision to go out on a new untested limb and just see what happens. Combining all of the above is an especially heady mix, and sure enough, several of my sweetest memory gems are variations of that intoxicating recipe. Like the year Catherine and I freaked out her parents by giving each other lovely handcrafted silver rings for Christmas. Our formal marriage, years later, was mostly so that everyone else would accept a decision we'd already come to long before. But years before that, when we were still first dating, back in the early 80s, I remember another very special evening. I was at the time, at the very height of my interest in fashion, effectively a cosmetic schizophrenic. Every morning I'd prepare for my office flunky job by gluing my hair up with vast volumes of gel and spray, then slicking it back to simulate follicular normalcy. I wore a $12 light gray three-piece synthetic suit from Salvation Army as the rest of my disguise. At day's end, as soon as I got inside my Queen Street West apartment, I'd wash all those plasticizing agents from my hair, freeing up my chin-length golden-dyed bangs, dress myself up all in black again, from head to toe, orchestral tails and combat boots, a favorite combo, and then I'd redo my standard makeup face. And only then, when I was back in proper freak mode once more, could I relax and feel comfortable. Myself. I was living a double life, felt like an undercover agent, but I was never in any doubt about which of me was the real one. In those days, I was certain that my destiny was to become a synthesizer player, but though I looked everywhere in town, walking miles to scout, the new keyboards at the time, while lovely instruments, were depressingly unaffordable. Everything was $2,000 or more, and I was making less than $5 an hour, and had very little left by the time I paid rent. So instead of entering the ranks of modern synthesis with polyphony, that is, chords, I ended up buying an old, battered 70s monosynth privately, from a kind salesman at one of the music stores where I couldn't afford to buy anything new. Slow payments on trust and a handshake. Very helpful. I also had the world's cheapest mixer, by realistic, 2 left and 2 right faders into 2 channels out, no pan. And the most ridiculous drum machine ever devised by man, which made 4 sounds: whoomp, dit, sh, and tss. My recording equipment consisted of a battered cassette tape deck, that I'd salvaged from the garbage, and a near ancient stenography system that they'd thrown away at the office where I worked, which I could use to bounce and overtrack, complete with a big foot pedal. Real fun. I enjoyed weird jams with a few friends, but had yet to form my very first band, and my ideas about how to get into the scene were extremely vague. All the musical experiences I'd had were based on meeting people and having great conversations, which remains largely true to this day, come to think of it. So I felt sure that if I met enough folks, I'd ultimately stumble into the spot where I'd fit in just right. There's one other counterintuitive ingredient, which I left out of my opening list of daymakers. Stress, especially time stress. There's a special pride in those memories where we were challenged to accomplish something impossibly fast and succeeded all the same. So, the evening in question. I was excited because I'd been invited to a big party at the band house for a popular local group with a very good critical rep, not least because their manager was a former publicist. These guys really were especially sweet, too, not lording their relative success over others, but generously reaching down to help out their fellow freaks who had not yet found themselves a niche. Puttering about my place, thinking about the party, I found lyrics entering my head as I went over and over my most recent date with Catherine. The nervousness we both felt when I passed her a note, which she still has, and we finally managed to ditch her watchful sister and get some alone time together, seemed to prove that her feelings were as strong as my own. You're never afraid of losing something unless it strikes you as precious, in potential at least. She liked the way I'd chase away the pigeons for her, and though she still denies it, I remain quite certain that being introduced to my teddy bear, named after the romantic poet Percy B. Shelley, also told her a lot of reassuring things about how much more I was inside than just a new wave freak. I wanted to tell her that I felt nervous too, and excited and thrilled and lucky, and how I really was sure that the affection we could feel building inside us would carry us through. Before long, I had my clipboard out, and I was furiously scribbling lyrics as fast as my hand could go. Only an hour to the party, mind you, and I really didn't want to be late, or worse, miss the band entirely. So, I fired up my monosynth, literally, one note at a time, and then started mucking about with the drum machine to see if the lyrics I just scrawled could even be sung on tempo. Lousy sound, though, so I stuck the beatbox through a rusty old distortion pedal. Much better. It was dumb to even start. I'd know better now. But thanks to my combination of teenage energy and foolishness, I managed to lay down bed tracks on the steno machine and overdub my second vocals and synths for a finished recording, all before I left for the party with a sort of positive glow that makes distance and effort completely disappear. I swear I took half of the 3 kilometers at a run just to work off some of my excitement, but still arrived grinning triumphantly. Harvey, the band's guitarist, was very glad to see me, and though I was a bit nervous entering the teeming crowd made up of much older, cooler scene folk, old enough to legally drink at least, which I was decidedly not at the time, knowing that he was really pleased that I was there made all the difference. Yeah, that's right. I know the coolest guy in the whole band. Who do you know? He even took a few minutes away from his other guests to sit and chat with me. And he genuinely loved the story about how I'd just written and recorded a love song for my sweetie in an hour, right before running down to his party. Soon I was being introduced to a few other hopeful young musicians. It was in every way a moment of high elation. Then he asked if I was going to get a beer. $5. You do know how a rent party works, don't you? Nope. I was much too dumb. I'd never even heard of it. Worse, I didn't even have a $5 on me. Honestly, I was that broke. Now, I'm pretty sure he had not staged the party to help his bandmates pay their rent, expecting to be lending out money to smiling young idiots. But he did slip me a $5 and advised me to go get a beer. But whatever you do, don't tell the guy who was selling them where you got the $5 from. I did as he suggested. Their over-muscled skinhead drummer was manning the beer fridge and cash box and had indeed been glowering at me for some time for being beerless. He glared only slightly less when I held up my freshly acquired fiver and asked if he had a Toby, that is a rare beer, instead of a blue, standard horse piss. No, he did not. I took what he offered. I left after the one beer, feeling thoroughly humiliated by my own ignorance. Totally uncool. But I was a teenager in love. I had a brand new love song in my head, beautiful Catherine on my mind. I was going to be just fine. Cheers, folks. Thanks for coming by again. See you soon.
Care for you, you know I'm sincere. Like a schoolboy and a schoolgirl, side by side on the sofa, looking away, unsure of ourselves. We've both been a little more trusting once before. I don't want to see what happens then happen again. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. There's a little more than teddy bears involved. If we never trust each other, never have the pain of letting go. Sleepless nights are borne away by logic. Sleepless nights are borne away by logic. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. Hearts for days, 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 hearts for days. I wonder why, you wonder why I care for you. I'm sincere. Schoolboy and schoolgirl, side by side on the sofa, looking away.